Daniel was only 28 when he decided to rent that little cabin in the snowy mountains of Colorado. He wasn't looking for trouble, just quiet, just peace, just enough solitude to finally finish the winter photography project he'd been putting off for months. The cabin looked perfect in the listing. Cozy, rustic, buried deep in a white wilderness. The kind of place you'd imagine curling up with a hot cup of coffee while snow fell outside. The nearest town? About 40 minutes away. And service? Forget about it. No cell signal at all. Just an old landline that, according to the owner, rarely works. Sounds charming, right? But here's where it gets unsettling. On his second night there, Daniel woke up to a sound that every part of his brain tried to explain away. At first, he thought it was the wind, or maybe the groaning of the old cabin wood settling in the cold. But when he listened closer, it was footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Boots pressing into fresh snow, right outside his window. He shot out of bed, grabbed the flashlight he kept on the nightstand, and shined it through the glass. But nothing. Just empty snowflakes drifting down, covering the ground. No movement, no figure, no explanation. Maybe it was an animal, he thought, a deer, or maybe just his imagination. But the next morning, when he stepped outside to grab firewood, his stomach dropped, because there they were, boot prints. Clear, deep, unmistakable human boot prints in the snow. They led right up to his cabin door, circled the cabin, and then vanished, fading into the thick woods beyond. Daniel laughed nervously, shaking it off. Just a lost hiker, he told himself. Except no hikers should have been there. That whole section of the mountain was closed off because of heavy snowfall. No trails, no tourists, no reason for anyone to be wandering around. And this, my friends, is where Daniel's week of peace started turning into a nightmare. By the way, if you're into creepy real stories like this, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the next detail? It'll make you check your own doors tonight. The next couple of days weren't much better. Daniel started noticing small, unsettling changes around the cabin. The kind of things you'd brush off once, but not twice. Like the old wooden chair in the living room that seemed to shift positions when he came back from a walk. Or his photography case, the one he kept locked. He'd find it sitting open, lenses slightly out of place, as if someone had been rifling through his gear. And then there was the darkroom incident. One evening, as snow hammered the windows outside, Daniel was bent over in the makeshift darkroom the cabin had, developing a roll of film. The air was heavy with the smell of chemicals, the red glow filling the tiny space. He was focused, hands steady, when a prickling sensation ran down the back of his neck. You know that feeling, that someone is behind you. Daniel froze, his breath caught. The sound was faint at first, a steady, slow exhale. He swore he could feel warm air brushing his ear. He spun around so fast the tray of developer nearly spilled. But the room was empty. Nothing. Shaking, he told himself he was just overtired, maybe paranoid. He finished up, shut everything down, and tried to sleep. But it was the next day that convinced him something was seriously wrong. While reviewing some of his photos of the snow-covered woods, flipping through frame after frame of ordinary winter shots, one made his stomach twist. There, standing in the distance among the trees, was a figure. Blurred, yes, but clearly human. Tall, looming, wearing what looked like a long, tattered hunting coat. Daniel stared at it for hours. Had he just missed this person while shooting? Or was it something else? Something watching him, hidden, waiting? If you were Daniel, what would you do? Would you pack up right then and there? Or convince yourself it's nothing? Let me know in the comments, because Daniel decided to stay. And that's when things spiraled. Oh, and while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying stories like this one. On the fourth night, the storm knocked out the power. Total blackout. The kind where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. Daniel grabbed his flashlight, heart thumping. He made his way downstairs, only to freeze. The front door was wide open. Snowflakes were swirling inside, coating the wooden floor. He slammed it shut, locked it tight, and bolted upstairs. But just as he was catching his breath, it started. Creak, heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate. Walking across the wooden floor of the cabin below him, Daniel's stomach knotted. He pressed his ear to the bedroom door, flashlight trembling in his hands. The steps moved closer. Up the staircase this time. 1, 2, 3 at a time until they stopped. Right outside his bedroom door. And then silence. No knock. No whisper. Just the suffocating quiet of being hunted. He stayed awake all night, clutching that flashlight like a weapon, too terrified to even breathe too loudly. When the first light of dawn finally poured through the window, Daniel didn't hesitate. He stuffed his belongings into his bag, barely bothering to pack properly, and bolted from that cabin. The drive down the mountain was a blur of fear and relief. But just when he thought it was finally over, he noticed something in the snow alongside the road. A single trail of footprints. Deep, heavy boot prints. They led straight from the cabin door, all the way down the mountain road, as if whoever or whatever had been there had followed him the entire way. Now here's the question I'll leave you with. Was Daniel ever truly alone in that cabin? Or did someone, maybe something, decide to share that week with him? If that made your stomach twist just a little, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Because trust me, the next one gets even darker. When Lena moved into her new apartment, she thought she'd finally found the perfect place. She was 34, a graduate student deep into her thesis work, and all she wanted was peace and quiet. The building was old, sure, but charming. Brick walls, creaky staircases, big windows that let in the city lights at night. And the best part? She managed to snag a top-floor unit. No neighbors above her, no late-night stomping or blaring music. Just silence. Or at least, that's what she thought. On the day she signed her lease, Lena asked about the floor above hers. She noticed another staircase leading up, but the landlord quickly waved it off. Storage only, he said with a shrug. No tenants up there. Nobody lives on that floor. That sounded perfect to Lena. One less thing to worry about. But sometimes, isolation doesn't give you peace. Sometimes it makes you hear things no one else can. And before I go further, if you love true, chilling stories like this, make sure you hit subscribe right now. Because what happened to Lena might change the way you look at your own ceiling tonight. The first week in her new apartment was uneventful. She unpacked, set up her desk, and tried to fall into a routine. But then came the first night. Around 2 in the morning, Lena sat at her desk, typing away on her laptop, when she heard it. Thump, thump, thump. At first she thought it was her imagination. But then it grew louder, heavier. It sounded like footsteps, pacing back and forth directly above her bedroom. She froze, staring up at the ceiling. The footsteps didn't stop. Whoever or whatever it was, they were moving with purpose. Heel to toe, over and over, as if someone had been pacing for hours. Her first thought? Maybe the landlord was wrong. Maybe someone did live up there after all. The next morning, she called him. "Hey," she said, trying not to sound paranoid. "Are you sure no one's on that top floor? I swear I heard footsteps last night." But the landlord cut her off. "Nope, it's locked. Been locked for years. Nobody up there." That should have been reassuring. But instead, it made her skin crawl. Because if no one was supposed to be up there, then who was walking above her head every night? What do you think? Was it just in her mind? Or did someone actually have a way into that so-called storage floor? By the third week, Lena was exhausted. Every single night at around 2 a.m., the pacing returned. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always there. Always heavy, deliberate, and right above her head. One night, she waited for it. Lying in bed, heart racing, she listened. And just like clockwork, the footsteps began. But then something changed. The pacing stopped. For the first time, it actually stopped. And then came a different sound. Scrape, drag, scrape. Something heavy was being pulled across the floor above her bedroom. It was so loud, the ceiling light fixture rattled. Lena sat up in bed, gripping the sheets. Her mouth was dry, her heart pounding. She wanted to scream at the ceiling, to tell whoever it was to stop. But deep down, she already knew. No one was supposed to be there. A few days later, things got worse. Lena noticed a dark stain spreading on her ceiling, right in the corner above her bed. At first, she thought it was water damage. Old buildings had leaks all the time, right? But when she leaned closer, the smell hit her. Not mold, not damp wood, but metallic, sharp, the smell of blood. She called maintenance immediately. They came, checked it out, and came back looking puzzled. "We don't get it," one of the workers said, wiping his hands on a rag. "We checked the whole floor upstairs. It's completely empty. Not a single thing up there that could cause this. Empty. But stains don't appear out of nowhere. And this stain, it kept spreading." By now, Lena wasn't sleeping. She jumped at every sound, avoided looking up at the ceiling, and kept her flashlight on her nightstand. But the fear built up until she couldn't take it anymore. So one night, she decided to face it. Armed with her phone and a flashlight, she climbed the narrow staircase leading to the top floor. Dust filled her lungs, cobwebs brushed her face. The hallway stretched ahead, long and dark, lined with old doors. Every single one was locked, except for one. At the very end of the hall, a door was cracked open just enough to let the beam of her flashlight slip through. Her hand trembled as she pushed it open. The room was almost empty, just bare, dusty walls, except for one thing in the center, an old iron bed frame, rusted, cold. Lena's light drifted down to the floorboards beneath it, and her stomach twisted. The wood was gouged, clawed with deep scratches, like someone had been dragged, like someone had fought to get away but couldn't. She staggered back, panic rising, and that's when she heard it. Footsteps, not above her this time, not below, but behind her. She spun around, flashlight shaking wildly, and for a split second she saw him. A gaunt face, pale skin stretched thin, eyes hollow and piercing. He was there, standing in the shadows of the hallway. And then he vanished. Lena ran. She bolted down the stairs, slammed her apartment door shut, and didn't sleep a single second that night. Within a week, she packed her things and moved out. She didn't even care about breaking the lease. She just needed to leave. Months later, curiosity got the better of her. She started digging into the history of that building, and what she found chilled her blood. Decades ago, that top floor wasn't storage at all. It had been used as a halfway house for unstable residents. Some violent, some dangerous. People the city didn't know what else to do with. And that iron bed frame? It wasn't just furniture. It was a restraint. To this day, tenants who live in the building say the stains on Lena's old ceiling never went away. No matter how many times the landlord painted over them, the dark spots always bled back through. Now here's my question for you. If you heard footsteps every night above you, and your landlord swore nobody was there, would you have gone upstairs to check? Or would you have moved out right away? Let me know down in the comments. And if this story made you glance at your ceiling just now, hit that subscribe button for more chilling, true horror stories. Because trust me, the next one might be the darkest yet. Marcus was a fisherman, 42 years old, the kind of man who spent more nights on the water than in his own bed. When you live a life at sea, you think you've seen everything, the fog, the storms, the silence. But Marcus was about to learn that the ocean keeps its darkest secrets hidden where no one dares to look. He had taken a job few would even consider. 3 weeks alone on a remote island lighthouse off the coast of Maine. The pay was good, and Marcus wasn't afraid of solitude. In fact, he welcomed it. No cell service, no constant chatter. Just the wind, the waves, and a lantern that had to stay burning through the night. His only lifeline was a battered shortwave radio. At first, it felt almost like a vacation. He fished, cooked simple meals, and read old books he had brought along. The lighthouse itself was a towering, weather-beaten structure. The kind of place where every creak in the floorboards sounded like a whisper. He tried not to think about how old it was or how many keepers before him had stayed there. But on the 5th night, things changed. He was sitting by the radio, not even trying to use it, just listening to the soft crackle of static as background noise. Then, something shifted. Through the static, Marcus heard faint voices. Not random interference, not distorted news chatter. Voices, whispering. At first, he thought it was a trick of fatigue. Maybe he was dozing off. But then he froze because he could make out words. His name. Marcus. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He grabbed the receiver and spoke into it. Hello? This is Station Lighthouse 49. Who is this? Nothing. Just static. He set the radio down and forced a laugh. It had to be cross-channel bleed, maybe fishermen from another boat. Still, when he climbed into bed that night, he couldn't shake the sound of his name echoing faintly through the static. If you're leaning closer right now, wondering if he should have quit then and there, yeah, you're not alone. But stick with me. It gets worse. And hey, if you're into stories that crawl under your skin like this one, don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss the next one. The whispers didn't stop. Over the next few nights, they returned. Always at night, always through the static. Sometimes clearer, sometimes distant. At times, it felt like several voices at once. Layered, broken, calling to him. Marcus stopped sleeping well. He would wake up to the sound of the radio hissing, only to realize he hadn't left it on. And then came the fog. One night, Marcus went outside to check the fuel levels. The island was blanketed in thick, suffocating fog, rolling in off the sea. That's when he saw them. Figures. Dark silhouettes standing along the rocky shoreline. Motionless. Too far to make out faces. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, looked again. Gone. He stumbled back inside, slamming the heavy lighthouse door behind him. His breath came in short, ragged bursts, and for the first time, he considered breaking his contract and calling for evacuation. But when he tried the radio, it was dead silent. No static. No whispers. Nothing at all. The following nights were worse. Doors slammed on their own inside the lighthouse, echoing up the spiral staircase. He would lock them, check them twice, and still wake to find them open. One evening, while checking the lantern room, Marcus noticed something on the stairs. Wet footprints. Bare feet. Starting at the ground floor and leading all the way up. But Marcus had been upstairs all night. Nobody else was on the island. Terrified, he flipped through the old lighthouse logbook, desperate for distraction. At first, the entries were mundane notes on weather, fuel levels, repairs. But then they grew frantic. Scribbled handwriting. Warnings. They come when it's foggy. Don't look directly at them. I hear them calling me. The last entry stopped mid-sentence. The ink dragged across the page as though the writer had been pulled away. If you've got chills right now, Marcus felt them too, except he was living it. On the 12th night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled, waves crashed against the rocks, and the lighthouse groaned with each gust. Marcus tried to distract himself with a book, but then, the radio came alive again. Not whispers this time. Screams. Dozens of voices crying out through static, overlapping, rising in pitch. Some begging. Some angry. Some sounding like they were drowning. Marcus clapped his hands over his ears, but the screams seemed to bleed into the walls, into the very air around him. And then glass rattled. He spun toward the windows. The figures were back. This time not far on the shoreline, but right against the lighthouse itself. Dozens of pale faces pressed to the glass, staring in. Men, women, children. Their skin was grayish, waterlogged, as though they had been pulled from the ocean floor. Their eyes empty, yet fixed on him. Marcus bolted up the stairs, heart racing, desperate to keep the lantern burning. But when he reached the lantern room, the flame went out. Total darkness swallowed him. He scrambled with trembling hands to relight it. Matches slipped through his fingers. His breath came fast, panicked. And then he froze, because he wasn't alone. When the flame finally flickered to life, a figure stood inches away inside the lantern room. Its face was gaunt. Its skin stretched thin, its eyes pale and unblinking. Salt water dripped from its lips. It leaned forward, whispering something Marcus couldn't understand. Then blackness. Marcus woke at dawn, sprawled on the cold floor of the lantern room. The light was burning again, steady and bright. The figures were gone. The fog had lifted. He stumbled downstairs, shaking, hollow-eyed, unable to process what had happened. When his 3 weeks ended, he didn't wait for the replacement keeper. He packed his things, left the logbook open where it lay, and boarded the boat that had come to collect him. He never looked back at the island. Later, he would learn the truth. The island had once been a burial ground. After storms wrecked ships off the coast, bodies were carried there, stacked in shallow mass graves beneath the very lighthouse where Marcus had stayed. Generations of the forgotten, nameless, restless. Marcus never returned to the sea after that. He left fishing, left the coast entirely, and moved inland. But he never escaped the whispers. Even years later, on quiet nights, when the wind is low and the world feels still, he swears he can hear them calling his name. And if you've been holding your breath through this story, imagine being Marcus, alone, surrounded by the dead who never rest. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might just keep you awake tonight.